my eight.
Hi everyone, we're back again after I guess, well, I'm pretty sure with our long 1 hour conversations it doesn't feel like we left,
Yeah, there's a little hiatus.
but we are continuing the discussion because it's pretty relevant. I'm sure a lot of people are dealing with this, the clock's going back, and now it just, I don't know if, I know it seems psychological, but it just, to me it seems like, I know obviously, why we do this daylight savings time, and the days obviously are shorter now, but it just feels like it's super short. um I feel like, you're racing against daylight, and at 4 o'clock it starts getting dark, and then it's just pitch black. That's how it feels. I don't know. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I get the. I'm used to having quite busy, productive days. So, I mean, off air, we were kind of talking about this briefly, but like, I'm used to my full work day with like quite a long commute. Um, and now, for some reason, I've kind of gone from 100 to zero. So, I'm kind of struggling with the excess time I have. And there's this weird mental block I'm kind of getting where like 4:30, 5 o'clock rolls around and it's pitch black outside, and my brain's like, okay, well, like it's time to kind of wrap up for the day. Like you've done everything you need to do. Like it's time to just shut down a little bit. And then like I sit around for like 5 hours waiting to go to bed, and I'm like, wow, that was a lot of time wasted. Like I could have been more productive with that. And I've been noticing it quite a bit over the last week and a half where, you know, by the time my body is like, okay, like let's go to bed, my brain's already beating me up over like how much I could have accomplished, even though like I feel like it's time to go to bed already. It's just a really weird time of year. It gets me every year. Um, Normally I'm working outside, so normally I'm lucky enough to spend my entire day out in the sunlight for the most part, or if there is any. Um, and this is my first year ever, well, first year in 10 years that I don't get that. So I'm getting hit pretty hard with it this year, to be honest.
I know I'm trying to circumvent it because it's, the same things I say, like extra vitamin D. I obviously use my, uh, like the light therapy. And now I'm really making sure that I'm getting exercise, like, daily. Like, I, even though I don't feel like doing it, I force myself because I see it affecting me physically, affecting me. So, um, and I just recently started back, like, after a long, long, long time, getting back into like yoga, just to like kind of quiet my mind.
Yeah, I really like that. I've been, um, I had to take, I've been a little inconsistent with it, but I was hoping to do some yoga like most mornings. I've definitely been inconsistent with it, but the mornings I do it, I do feel better. My partner and I are both looking into like buying like a rowing machine or like some form of like an indoor bike.
Get a
Because
Peloton, I'm telling you.
yeah, like I'm looking into something because I need.
And they lowered the price. Kind of pissed off, but good for you if you
Yeah, I
get
just
it.
looked. They just dropped to like 400 or 500 bucks or something.
Yeah, that's nice, of course.
Yeah, right after you buy it. Thanks, appreciate that. Um, yeah, so I need something that I can expel some of the energy that I'm used to getting rid of that I'm not, because I'm starting to feel very pent up. Um, I used to have severe headaches when I was really kind of stressed out and depressed. Those are starting to kind of come back, and those are always for me like a very. They're like the final big red flag waving where it's like, okay, like you're gonna slip. Like here's your notice. Like let's start being productive and like kind of start trying to claw your way out of this, downward spiral that seems to be occurring. Um, so yeah, I need to start exercising. and I need to start being more productive. And then I always have a really hard time with it because like I get these really gnarly headaches, and then because I hold so much tension in my jaw, so I get this like clenched jaw, and then I get these really nasty tension headaches. Um, and the only way to get rid of it is by doing like healthy, active, either exercising or like for me, I used to do a lot of hiking. That kind of really helped, and that stuff's been kind of on the back burner for the last little bit. So I need to start getting back into those kind of healthy routines and kind of snap myself out of the, you know, early winter funk that we're kind of entering into here.
Yeah, and of course, the first snowfall is always oh my gosh, it's actually even though it's not technically winter, we're still in fall. But I always feel like that daylight savings time, and then that first snowfall is sort of like it's an indication winter's coming.
Oh, I agree completely. And it's always the worst because you're like, oh, how am I going to get through this entire winter? Like, like New Year's hits and you're like, okay, like, we're kind of getting there. We're kind of getting there. And then, you're at Valentine's Day and you're like, oh my God, like, okay, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, right now, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, get ready. You're about to enter into winter, like, just barely starting. So, like, my mind always kind of eats me alive this time of year, right? And then I'm very used to working outside, so like I get the kind of survival of like, oh, how am I going to do it this year? Like last year was brutal. I was so cold all the time. How are we going to do it this year? And then I find for me, it's very similar to how most of my kind of anxiety or depression works. Like it's always the build up to something that's significantly worse than the actual action of it. So like the transition of like the cold weather coming in is always significantly worse for me than like when I'm in the middle of it and I'm like, oh, okay, like, it's the coldest time of the year and like I'm fine, I'm surviving, it's all right, like we're getting through it. So yeah, for me, it's always the start's the roughest part.
Well, do you do a lot of see, I'm bad like that. So, soon as it gets cold, I'm not one of those winter sports people, but I am going to force myself this year. I keep saying it every year and then I miss the whole season, but I'm really going to take out my skates and kind of like skate this year. But they say that's another thing, even though, when you have this seasonal affective depression, is to kind of get involved in some sort of winter activities to kind of break it up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and my partner this year was like, okay, so she's a snowboard instructor for like a part-time job she has, and she's like, I'm gonna teach you how to snowboard this year. She's like, you need something that is going to allow you to relieve stress and be something you can look forward to and have fun in the winter. Because I was always like, I worked outside. I never did winter sports, so I was always very much like, I despised winter, and she absolutely loves it. It's one of her favorite times of year because the things she loves doing most happen this season. So it's very interesting when you're in a relationship like that where you're able to actually look at the perception and how that changes based on activities you're doing. So if it's something you really enjoy doing, obviously you're gonna enjoy the winter a lot more than if you're like me and you're just hiding out in your home waiting for the cold weather to
Yeah,
end.
that's me. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like I'm like, okay, like
I think it's safe. I feel
yeah,
like one of those animals that hibernate.
I don't know, my birthday is like the trail end of March, and I'm like, hey, like I'll see you around my birthday. Like that's when I know I can start coming back out again. Um, so that's one thing I want to do is start getting a little bit more into some activities that just help relieve stress. Because right now I'm not doing any of those, and obviously I'm quite stressed out. Um, and it's very strange because like I'm a very calm stress right now, which is weird. Normally I get very worked up when I'm stressed out, and like right now I'm like, no, everything's good, everything's going the way it needs to go, progress is being made. Like it's perplexing to me because it just goes to show you how hard people can be on themselves, right? So like I had a plan, I set out to do the plan, I'm accomplishing the plan, and yet I'm still thinking that I'm not doing enough. Um,
well, you're singing to the choir, so.
yeah, right. So it's incredibly frustrating to be that hard on yourself. And I'm lucky enough that I have a partner that kind of slaps me in the head once in a while. And it's like, hey, listen, like you're doing good. You're doing better than you think. Like, relax.
Well,
But the,
we're always focused on the next thing. That's the issue. So, they always say life is a journey. It's not a race, right? It's not a. We're always focused on the destination, even though we're not realizing we're living through things that we once wanted before, right? Like, but we're so focused on the next goal or the next, you know, um, anything next. Like, we're focused on future events, not the present, right?
yeah, I think like 98% of your life is spent waiting.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like you're waiting in line for a coffee, or you're waiting for, like, you're always waiting for something, right? You're working towards a goal, but in that sense you're still waiting for the goal to actually appear or happen. So I find that interesting. Like, if you would have told me when I started therapy that, hey, listen, you're going to end a relationship you've been in for a very long time, and it's going to be painful, but it will be for the better, I would have been like, okay, like, that's interesting. Like, let's
No, you would have
pursue
been
that a
like,
little bit.
yeah, right.
Yeah, okay. Like, I would have been like, yeah, I know I need to do that. I don't know how, but I know I need to. And then if you would have told me, hey, listen, the job that you started when you were 17 and you've been doing for 10 years, you're going to leave that job, even though you make really good money, and
And
you're
it's
going to go
all
back to
you
school.
knew.
Yeah, it's all you knew, and you're going to go back to school, an environment that you really were not a fan of growing up, and you're going to get into an industry that is the complete opposite of where you were for a decade. I would have looked at you and been like, okay, you're absolutely nuts. Like, I'm loving what you're telling me, but like, I don't know if you know who I am. I can't do that. There's no way I could do that. And like, here I am living that, and I'm still like, you're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. It's crazy.
Because now I think what has happened is, and this is just my, you know, um, take on it, is that I feel as though you were on autopilot and now you're on manual. And that's why you're feeling that you're not doing enough. Because now all those dreams that were deferred, like, you're actually seeing, like, the, like, accomplishments. Like, you're, as you said, you're setting goals, you're accomplishing the goals, you're seeing progress in your goals, and you're seeing how far, like, literally it's been a year. This has happened to you all in a year.
Yeah. Wow, man.
Actually less than a year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So think about where you were a year ago to where you are now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
Right.
I need to, I was thinking about it. I've been busting out the handy journal,
Good.
the last couple days. Cause like I said, I need to find a way, that really resonates with me for active stress relief. Cause that's one thing that I've always struggled with. And then when I hit certain periods, within the year, like this time of year, for example, like winter hitting and the time change, I'm already like slightly stressed out because I don't know how to deal with, like, I've never been great with dealing with stress. And then I get the added on stress of like something else, and then I'm like, okay, like now I'm starting to feel my knees buckle a little bit, like, ooh. So yeah, I want to really find something that, really helps eliminate that stress. So, like I said, I'm looking into like bikes and stuff like that because I've always been a big fan of cardio. So some kind of working out. I need to, I might go into like an indoor driving range or something like that and go golfing. Like, I just need to do something that I really enjoy.
Well, the only reason, like I was telling you, I only started this stuff, even though this was available on the Peloton. It's because of the way but the bike was positioned because, as you know, there's a screen attached. So, but with the app, there's all these classes, including yoga, meditation, like strength training. Like it's an entire program, right?
Uh-huh.
But because of the awkward way where my bike sits, I couldn't do that. So, uh, like all this time, I could have just bought a Fire Stick, right? And you can cast your Peloton on your TV.
Oh, perfect.
So that's why I'm able to do all these other classes because now I just watch it on the TV.
Perfect.
So you should look into it.
I should.
And actually, you know what? The app is free, I think, for 2 months. So you could just try it out, like just on your phone. Like you can try the other classes.
Yeah, because like I said, like I was looking into Peloton for, I like the idea of biking, and then I've like I said, I've always really enjoyed hiking. I love being in nature. I love trees. I love that kind of scenic environment. And like the Peloton, I'm pretty sure you can take do bike rides.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Quote unquote, all over the world. Right?
Yeah, I didn't do. I know I started with the classes and then I found them like, who am I fooling? They're way too intense. And so then I just started doing the scenic rides, and you can either do them guided or just on your own. So they're perfect for me.
Yeah, that's perfect. Get you out doing something, or get your body moving.
And I went to Savannah, Georgia yesterday, so that was good.
That'd be pretty sweet.
I was in Australia last week.
That's one thing I want to do. Is actually I've been thinking about it like crazy, and I've never really been a traveler. And a lot of that stems from I just have a crap ton of anxiety when I don't know where I'm going to be, or I don't, you know what I mean? Like I just get worked up before I even do something, and then I'm like, oh no, I can't handle that. And the last couple weeks, I'm like thinking to myself, like, man, like I really want to do like a really nice road trip, or I want to do.
Well, I feel like we're all a little bit, we're going stir crazy a little bit with this pandemic. So
yeah, I think everybody's just like, all right, like I'm ready to just like. I'm over this alternate dimension. Like, let's go. Let's get back to reality.
Where's the booster shot? And hurry up, because I just want to kind of get on with it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I'm just over it. I'm ready.
And yeah, I'm ready. This isn't turning into like an anti-vaxxer or vaxxer or pro or con. It's not, it's not kind of.
Oh no, not at all. No, it's just I'm just like, let's go. I'm ready for life to kind of kickstart again, because I feel like if I feel this way, I feel like a lot of people must, and I'm just in this really weird.
I feel like it's your fault because you're the one at the very beginning who said we won't be out of this till 2022. So
yeah, I know.
You have nothing to say right now.
I know. My little pessimist mind. I think like a lot of people, like I'm just ready. Like I'm in this weird position where. The vast majority of my life is kind of going on like normal, and then there's also like this huge portion that's just like, whoa, what's going on over here? And it's just, it's very strange feeling like you're kind of getting pulled in two different directions, where like naturally you're kind of, humans adapt very quickly, so this alternative lifestyle is people are adapting to it, but we can still remember what life used to be like, and it's this really weird kind of pull.
I wanted to talk to you about. Like, remember you just finished saying like, you went from commuting to like now, your whole life is completely different, but that's going to be, well, kind of your life. You're not going to be doing those super long commutes how you used to, and those long laborious days of hard at work. You're going to be doing more mental work, but people transitioning, because the rumor mill has it that a lot of people, and have been lately, of doing sort of like 2 days in the office, 3 days at home, or vice versa, whatever. But people who were complaining about, oh my God, I miss the office, I miss you, and then now loving working from home, are now going to have to transition back into the regular schedule program?
I really, I, this is coming from somebody who has absolutely never worked in an office setting whatsoever. Um, I'm a really, I believe I'm going to be a really big fan of like a hybrid program where there's a few days in the office, there's a few days at home. Um, I do well. I have a lot of social anxiety, but I do well in social settings where, you know, I have to kind of flex those social muscles a little bit. And if I spend too much time at home, then I get a little antsy about being out in public again. So for me, I personally, I think like some form of a hybrid system would work best. Also, I know for a fact that um, I'm more productive, me as a person, if I'm going somewhere to accomplish something versus, if I have something to do around the house, I'm like, okay, I have all day to do it. Like, it will get done. Whereas, like, if I'm going to work to do something, I'm like, okay, like, let's bang this out as fast as I possibly can, as effectively as I can, and then I can get going home. Like, that's just the way my brain kind of works. I've always been like that, where, even doing yard work, I'll be like, kind of like, okay, like, this is good, like, just take my time. Whereas, if I go help my partner during her landscaping business, I'm like, okay, like, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. It's just interesting how different people operate effectively in different scenarios.
Well,
I know there's a ton of people that are equally as productive at home as they are at work, 100%. So
I just feel like, well, we'll see, because it will really just be up to, I guess, organizations and their leadership on going forward, if you're going to, force people back to the status quo of how it was, and then we've learned nothing from this pandemic, right? Like, you know, I feel there's people who, you hear the great resignation, so people are just like, um, who've done major moves and decided, you know what, I'm going to follow my passion. This was the time. Or people who were forced to because they, lost their jobs. Because I find that, that kind of went away. Like, it was sort of like muffled news, I would call it. Even though I'm not a big news watcher, because there's nothing positive, in the news. But I mean, of course, you'll hear news anyways. But I found, like, you were hearing, like, the collateral damage of this pandemic, and then you weren't hearing it. So we weren't hearing, like, at the beginning we were hearing, if you knew people, you would hear who lost their jobs, and, the layoffs and the closures, and then it kind of just got muffled. And then people, again, we're talking about mental health, and people who were, the suicide rates because they just couldn't cope, or the domestic abuse that is on the rise because of
divorce rates.
Yeah, the divorce rates that were skyrocketing.
Divorce rates are skyrocketing.
You can't even get a lawyer because they're so busy, and you don't. It's almost like it's muffled, and that's what I feel might be revealed in 2022, where, like, I guess the aftermath, when the dust kind of settles, and, like, the realities of picking up the pieces of, it's sort of like it, for lack of a better analogy, it's sort of like a tornado, no, a hurricane. Like, the eye of the hurricane is the calmest part, right?
Yep.
So it's all this stuff that's going around that we're sort of like in the eye, right? We're not hearing it. We know it's out there, but we're not hearing about it, unless, I guess, you personally went through it. I just feel nobody's really talking about it, is what I'm saying. And they're very real things that are happening, and I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, that we're just not talking about it. Like, even the amount of people I know, and again, I'm not going to go on that tangent about COVID, if it's real, if it's not, because yeah, it's real, but okay, that's just, it's not my opinion, it's a fact, but okay, like we'll keep it there. Like, but people who like have every day someone's, there's like 6 degrees of separation of either someone personally that have passed away from from COVID, or so there's going to be a lot besides the normal grieving. There's going to be a lot of grieving, especially that's coming up to the holiday season. So it's going to be a lot of people's first Christmases without their loved one. There's going to be a lot. It's going to be pretty heavy.
I agree. I think coming up to the holidays is going to be a very interesting time in relation to the pandemic. I think there's going to be some strict kind of social distancing protocols that are put in place.
Oh, because of this, what is it? This, I call it like the Transformer, because it's Omicron or Decepticon or.
I mean, honestly, yeah. I think it's just going to be along the lines of they're going to really not want that many people getting together because numbers are going to spike and so on and so forth. But I think there's also a certain level of a disconnect between, I remember the very first shutdown we had, and like I didn't leave my house for 2 weeks. I went to work. I still had to go to work. And I remember driving on the highway, like on the 401.
Empty.
And there was nobody. It was unbelievable. It was a ghost town. Like,
it was like that movie,
just gone.
I Am Legend.
Yeah, and that's what it was really, really like. And then, as, the year and a half has gone on, we have definitely entered into other lockdowns, and I never saw that again. I've never seen the same public response. And that's one thing that concerns me, is are we going to continue the kind of social restrictions that are in place, even though there seems to be a very high number of people that aren't necessarily following them? Like, are they over it? Do they want life to go on as normal? I mean, I think Canada's vaccination rate is like knocking on 80%. So, the way I kind of look at it is vaccination rates are quite high. The vaccine has been readily available for a very long time. If you wanted it, you already got it. If you don't want it, then okay, you're the one that's putting yourself at risk. Everybody else should be vaccinated. They should have significantly more immunity and or safety. So I think there's a lot of people that are going to be like, we're vaccinated, like we'll just have everybody together, and then there's the potential for I don't know. It's just a weird time. Like, I really hope numbers don't go up, because I would hate to be thrown into another lockdown. That's all I have to say.
But they said that the numbers are going up.
They definitely are, but I mean, it's also that time of year as well, right? Like, as soon as the weather gets cold, more people spend time indoors. So those very subtle social interactions people are having all summer, a couple people over on a patio or something like that, now they're moving to a couple people over, but they're having them in the living room instead, and that's a very significant difference. So yeah, we'll see. I know numbers are definitely starting to creep up, but I don't want to see the endless amounts of lockdowns, because I think we're at the point right now where we're slowly starting to prove that they're not really as effective as we would hope them to be.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but they might help a little bit, but I don't know.
Well, the fact of the matter is, yeah, even we know that with the vaccines it doesn't prevent you getting it. So I think it just helps you it builds up a little bit of your immunity, and hopefully you will not be hospitalized, right?
Yes.
And that's typically what it is. But, people aren't understanding the other factor. Whether, the point is not to get COVID. And, even if you're not hospitalized, it's still horrible. Like, it's still a bad flu that has no antibiotics or medication that you can take. to like help you get through it. So my question is, oh, so if that, like, I don't want a flu, period. So whether if it was COVID or another flu, I don't want it. Whether, I definitely don't want to die from it, obviously, but I definitely don't want it anyways. So like, this ignorance of, oh well, talk about deaths, like, it's just so ridiculous. Do you want a flu? Like, do you want to be flat out for like 2 weeks?
Oh
That's
yeah,
the
no,
question.
I hate getting sick. I mean, I
Exactly.
think everybody does, right?
Right. So like, what, you just don't care that it's still 2 weeks of your life that you're not going to feel well, and you can potentially infect others. So it, like, and yes, it's just like a normal flu. I can, if I had influenza, I can definitely be contagious at some point. So it's the point of, do you want a flu? That's the question. And if
Yeah.
you can try to prevent the flu, why wouldn't you?
No, I agree. I agree to that completely. Like, I don't know. The one thing that my partner and I have actually discussed is how much less often we have gotten sick over the last like 2 years than ever before in our lives, and it's just from increased, public health
Diligence,
and
washing
diligence,
hands
right?
and
You know
masks
what I mean? Like, you're
and
just
social distancing
exactly.
and
You're just significantly more aware of stuff that you've touched that somebody else might have, and disinfecting and so on and so forth, right? So it's really quite interesting where a lot of the protocols are, they're kind of game changing in the way that we might slow down um, other, like, just the regular cold, the regular flu, those kind of things might not be transmitted nearly as effectively as they used to be from the protocols, right? So it's a really interesting kind of next step in the social experiment of healthcare, I guess you could say. Like, it's really cool that there's that many people out there that are that aware. I mean, I found it very interesting at the start of the pandemic. I used to watch people pump their gas, and like, they wouldn't have or they would have gloves on, and then they jump in the car with the gloves on,
I
and
know.
they would touch everything in their car, start it all up, touch the steering wheel, and then they take the gloves and mask off. And I was just like, okay, it's probably better if you just use your bare hands and then use sanitizer. But I mean, there's a learning curve to everything, right? So,
Ugh.
but I think I know for me, like, I'm just ready to kind of be like,
I'm
all right,
always,
like, I just want to get back to life. I'm tired.
I was a germaphobe before COVID, so this is just like on like H2. This is like HD now, like 2.0, like germaphobe now. Like, I would never touch doors. I would do, like, I don't know, push them, or wait for someone to open it, because
Oh, I remember, like, I've always done this. Wherever I walked up to a crosswalk, I would always use, like, my shirt to
yeah,
click the button.
I
don't
never
know.
touch things. I never wanted to touch anything.
I just always remember being like, how many people have touched this?
That's what I mean. Like, I was already like, ugh. Like, just even like using the debit machine, like, you're like using your nail and you're trying not to touch anything, and like,
Yeah,
I
I'm
was
really
like
happy
that.
to go tap.
I was like that way before. So, and then now at the gas station, I use the paper towels. They provide free paper towels, people. Free paper towels. Like, you don't have, and then you could just, the garbage is right there. So you can just use the paper towels. I just always think about who's watching. I'm sure those attendants are watching me, because I always pay at the pump. And it's like a whole process, right? Take a paper towel, I'm wrapping it around the thing. I'm like trying to tap my thing, when I'm paying, and not touching anything. It's a process.
Well, it's just high traffic areas, right? So, I mean, it comes down to, like you said, like, do you want to get sick? Period. It's not even necessarily just a COVID question at this point. Like, that's just an overall, you're being susceptible to the actual cold, like a regular cold, the real, like, influenza. It's a whole bunch of stuff, right?
And
So
people were, let's be honest, people did not have manners before. So, like, they would sneeze right in it. Like, that was my worst fear, in an elevator and someone sneezes, and then you're trapped in there. So like you have to hold your breath now for how many floors? Like,
Yeah, hopefully that's horrible.
get me out! Get me out!
Yeah. Why do you take the stairs every day? Well,
Don't
people
worry about
breathe.
it.
Yeah, people breathe. I can't handle it. I think, I'm just hopeful. I'm hopeful that, come the new year, I think Ontario's already kind of released like a very loose outline on their idea of when they're going to start kind of pulling back some
Wasn't it
restrictions.
March?
I vaguely remember seeing March. I think they've already pushed. There was a couple dates, I think, for December as well.
Yeah, they pushed that back 28 days.
Yeah, they pushed it back, I believe, because numbers were starting to creep up again. Probably just, I think a lot of it honestly has to just do with the simple, like, it's that time of year. Where immune systems are already compromised a little bit.
I don't. This isn't fear mongering, so I don't think they're gonna shut down because we can't handle another shutdown. But I just think, they're not going to. It's just gonna be as it is now. I just think you're gonna still have to take precaution, and it's, we're not out of this by any means, and with these new variants that keep cropping up, and I heard this one's like really bad, like it's worse than the Delta variant, so we'll see. I just think people just need to just do what they're doing, be safe, and just let's get through this.
I agree. I think from my perception is like I'm Canadian, so if you tell me that like, hey, you can help out your neighbors, I'm like, okay, like let's do it. So and I feel like as a country, that's us as a whole. Like my only thing is like I'm at the point right now where I'm like, okay, like is there any chance that like I could see a schedule? Like do we have any idea like when we get out of it? And I'm not saying to stop being courteous. I'm just, you know what I mean, just to kind of allow life to open up a little bit. But
as you knew, like last week, I wasn't feeling well. So what do? You do the responsible thing and you get tested for COVID.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that you know, like, oh my gosh, let me at least know it's not that. So I'm not, if I have to self-isolate, whatever I have to do, I don't want to pass it to someone else. I want to be safe. So
yeah, like I was working this summer, and like the job site I was on was doing like mandatory testing like 2 or 3 times a week.
Right.
And I'm not gonna lie, at the start of it, I was kind of a little annoyed by it, and then after like the second week, it was almost like this weight had been lifted, and I was like, oh wait, like I know that I'm like I can't give it to anybody. Like I know I'm good. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting actually. Like it was really strange where like the weight of like, oh wait, no, I'm not going to give this to my mom. Like I'm clean. I don't have it.
The worst
thing. It was
thing,
interesting. It's just like a layer of stress that I didn't even know was there was gone.
And the worst thing about this, which is why it's so rampant, is you can be asymptomatic. So that's the scary part, fear. Right? Like
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like I was scared about getting sick. All right, but at the same time, I'm a 30-year-old relatively healthy male. I'm not saying I'm invincible, but I'm saying that statistically, I'm probably going to be okay. I was very, very, very scared of being asymptomatic and giving it to my parents or my grandparents or somebody that didn't have the immune system that I potentially have. That was my personal biggest fear.
Exactly.
I didn't want to be responsible for somebody else to get sick. So when we started getting those tests, it was like, oh, I didn't even realize there was a layer of stress here, and I just completely got rid of it. It was really an interesting experience.
Exactly. So I'm close with somebody who's, I shouldn't be around if I'm sick, period, anyways. So I wanted that extra, you're safe. So.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Do we have anything else? I know we kind of went off on a weird little
but as usual, but that's fine.
Yeah,
that's how it always is, which makes it interesting. Yep. So we could talk. We definitely can dive back into some strategies for like people who I'm one of them, so I'm not speaking out of turn. I don't really I haven't enjoyed the holidays for a long time because my parents were big holiday people, like every single holiday, and Christmas was their favorite. So there were a lot of customs and traditions that I grew up with, and and so of course when I had my son, when my dad passed, it was, and my mom was already sick, so it, but I just went through the motions because I had a kid, so I can't be selfish. So I would just make, do the same things, and the reality is I don't really enjoy it. I'm not a big fan. Um, and so I can relate to how tough the first Christmases without your loved one is, and like even ongoing, so we can talk about maybe some strategies on how to kind of like deal and cope with going through the holiday seasons, and even people who are alone and isolated. Like there's a lot of seniors that are isolated, or even a lot of people that are isolated. So as we just spoke about, it might be people's first divorces, and like there's a lot going on, especially this Christmas.
I mean, even from my point of view of, I've never really been a big Christmas person or a big holiday person ever, and being in a relatively new relationship with some level of expectations going into the holidays, it's stressful. It's just stressful.
It
period,
is.
right?
It is. It is.
So regardless of what the situation is, it's a very happy and a very stressful time of year for everybody, I think. So yeah, some coping mechanisms would be great.
A tip before we go is like, you don't have to, because I remembered what I wanted to talk about, of course, now that we're exiting. It was the January blues, like the fact that January is known for like the highest depression rates. And I actually looked it up, and it was because of like December being sort of like the pseudo happy month, because it's holiday season. And then of course January, because especially the winter blues, it's also because of finances, because bills start coming in.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of Christmas bills are coming in. I think January is a very strange month with,
it seems like
not much to look
like
forward
January
to.
seems like it has 500 days, not 31.
Well, there's nothing in January, right? Like
Right.
there's nothing. Like your
It's
next day is
actually,
like,
I think
the
it's
next
like
time you're looking forward to is Valentine's Day.
January is
like
also
mid-February.
Alzheimer Awareness Month, so it's like very like heavy for me. But
Yeah.
it's really a dismal month, and so I think that's sort of like, it's perfect timing because it's November 30th going into December. Keep that in mind. Like you don't have to like overspend to prove your love to people in December. Like I always say Christmas is the same time every year. It's not like a mystery. It's not like it's not on the 29th of February where it comes once every 4 years. You can prep for it all year. And if you can't afford to give, which I don't get me started on the capitalistic ploy of Christmas, but that's neither here nor there. But that's just I don't believe in giving gifts at Christmas, because I believe you give all year through, so I don't need a special day to tell me I have to give somebody something. And you can give your time. You can volunteer somewhere, or you can give to a food bank, or you could sit with a senior who's isolated and speak to them for a couple hours, instead of thinking that you have to monetarily give something. Think about that.
Yeah. I agree. I've had the conversation with my girlfriend, and the gift giving pressure of Christmas is not something that I enjoy. I find it very stressful.
Me too.
And she told me that it's just not one of my love languages, and I've expressed myself in a very loving way throughout the year. So
me too.
The expectations on gifts are very low, and it's much more about quality time being spent together
And
for us.
I give gifts that have meaning. So like it's not necessary. Like, you know, it's like, you know, really knowing the person, and the gift is it's meaningful, and it's not necessarily something, you know, like the latest gadget or whatever. You know, that's how I give gifts, and I give gifts if I want to. I'm never pressured. So that doesn't work on me.
I'm very similar to that.
I always go, are you using the Jedi mind trick? Because it's not going to work. Like, it's not going to work. You are not going to change my mind.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm really excited to get into some of these coping skills for the holidays. Probably next week.
Okay.
Honestly, I'm going to bring my notepad and some paper.
Okay.
And take some notes, because I need all the help I can get as well.
Perfect.
But yeah, I think that's it for today.
Okay. Talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.